Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks, where we meet with the top thought leaders and strategists in emerging technologies, digital assets, the regulatory landscape, and capital markets. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, and joining me this afternoon, we have Sanjay Gupta, Chief Strategy Officer of Auradine, Juan Lopez, General Partner of VanEck Ventures, and Marko Stokic, Head of AI at Oasis. We're here to discuss AI and how it could revolutionize blockchain technology and why there's still so much confusion about their intersection. Certainly a key topic for us on Trade Talks. It's great to have all of you with us. Welcome to the show. Juan, let's kick it off with you. Give us a brief overview of where you sit within the AI and blockchain space.
Thanks for having us, Joe. Yeah, my name is Juan Lopez. I'm a general partner of VanEck Ventures. We're a $40 million early stage vehicle, really forming part of the broader VanEck umbrella, but primarily focused on investing at the intersection of fintech, crypto, and AI. For those that are familiar with VanEck, we're a global investment manager. We specialize in ETFs and mutual funds. The firm was founded around 1955, but continues to be family owned. And we're increasingly excited about the opportunities in crypto and AI and have made a few investments. So super excited to be here and chat more about that.
All right, you got it. And Sanjay, tell us about the work at Auradine.
Sure, Jill. Again, delighted to be here. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer of Auradine, based in Silicon Valley. High company, which is focusing upon technology infrastructure for both blockchain and AI. And so this is a topic very dear to my heart. We're actually focusing on powering the future of both. And we provide all the infrastructure which drives, the future of both blockchain and AI.
All right. And Marko, Oasis, tell us.
Thank you, Jill. It's a pleasure to be here. Oasis, we have actually built our own blockchain quite a while ago, and we built one of the rollups on top of it. It's a confidential EVM, but we don't need to go too deeply into it. But what we realized with AI companies is that there is a big need for privacy, or rather confidential compute, and that's what we're assisting projects with.
So, Marko, let's talk more about that here, because AI and blockchain, we hear a lot about these emerging technologies. Sometimes the names are used synonymously, or we're not understanding exactly what they do and where they fit within the ecosystem. So why does AI and blockchain matter to each other when it comes to security, data-driven decision-making, and so forth?
I mean, there's great synergies between them. The latest kind of pitch that I see, and it really clicked for me, why this is so beneficial to both is, and it's a quote or actually a statement by Sri Ram, one of the founders of Eigenlayer, and he said, crypto has an apps problem. We have built so much infrastructure, but no one is building on top. I mean, I don't know if you've ever used a crypto app. I very rarely recommend it to non-crypto people. And trust or AI, on the other hand, has a big trust problem. And this is starting to become kind of obvious to many because we are, again, handling all of this data into these big companies like OpenAI, and we are trusting them with this data. And the intersection between those promises kind of the perfect symbiosis, like crypto or AI can become the applications on blockchains, and blockchain, on the other hand, can help AI companies establish trust with their users with things like confidential compute or decentralizing some stack of the AI infrastructure.
Yeah, and Sanjay, I think Marko makes an excellent point, right? Because when you think about blockchain, it helps to make AI more transparent, data integrity, which is at the backbone of, all companies these days. I feel as if talking about security and governance around data was a conversation that almost happened after the fact, right? And that it wasn't almost thought about security by design when these technologies started to roll out. What are your thoughts around that when it comes to data integrity and what AI means for that?
No, thanks, Jen. I think makes an excellent the future of AI. There's tremendous applications, but there's also a question upon areas like deepfakes, the data integrity. There's also going to be the future of AI, which is driven by agentic workflows, where you're not even taking a direct derivative of AI, but you're looking at AI agents communicating with each other and taking critical decisions. In fact, there are some statistics put out by Forbes, one of the articles saying that AI agents could be over $125 billion industry in the next 5 years. So if you're looking at ensuring that there's security, there is, for instance, there's technologies in blockchain where you can guarantee security and authenticity of these transactions. You can put it out on a public ledger. There's a strong intersection point between applications for providing security to the AI application layer, which I think is a very critical overlap between the two areas. Yeah. Besides, there's an overlap on the infrastructure layer that we can get into down the line. But I think on the application layer and the secure application layer, there's some strong overlap.
Yeah. And Juan, I'm curious to get this from VanEck's perspective when you think about AI-driven trading and market insights. How is that being leveraged? How is it changing the way you think about investing and strategy selection?
Yeah, totally. I think every conversation when it comes to crypto and AI starts with sort of two core inflections. And I think we've echoed it through Sanjay and Marko. It's really about trust and it's about ownership. And when we sort of zoom out and think about that, and especially in a world that has increased skepticism to sort of what's real and what's not, as well as the collective sort of demand from society to participate and have more governance or have more of an economic say in what happens with these systems, we see a really strong sort of setup for how AI could be co-owned, perhaps through protocols to sort of manage these agents, or perhaps through the data itself that's being leveraged to train some of these AIs. So when we sort of think about our strategy, we're a venture fund and we want to make sort of directional long-term bets. We really think about founders who are thinking deeply about these inflections and looking to leverage them in ways that are both adding additional governance and additional attribution to the systems that are managing AIs, but also thinking more deeply about how they could be mutually owned by their communities. So as opposed to just the hyperscalers.
Yeah, well, let's take that conversation a bit further, but in another way, when you think about AI and Bitcoin or crypto miners competing for those energy resources and being able to triage that demand in electricity, I mean, it's going to unprecedented levels. What are your thoughts around that in terms of, who's getting what and how they're, able to triage this kind of demand?
Totally. Yeah, I mean, I think the super interesting thing that we've learned from Bitcoin is its ability to create this sort of industry when there's an incentive. And it begs the question, so when there's a valuable resource, and I think we have a new set of commodities coming down the pipe, whether that's data, compute, bandwidth, if given the right incentives, could we bootstrap those resources at scale? And how could we monetize them? How could we trade them in a way that is not just through sort of the bilateral agreements that are in place today? So when you think about who wins and what sort of setup enables that incentive, I think it's exactly what many of the protocols and teams that are working on today. It's quite early stages, but we're quite excited to see how different teams can take models from or the perspective from Bitcoin and apply it to DeepIn in order to bootstrap new resources that can benefit the AI economy. Again, things like data, compute, bandwidth that are now starting to be seen more as commodities, but can be traded on open blockchains.
Yeah. And Marko, I see you're shaking your head in agreement there. I'd like to get your perspective as well when you're thinking about developing new models and applications around the blockchain.
Yeah, I think this is the perfect kind of transition because this is something that blockchains have been great at historically, incentivizing users or kind of building an incentive system for common good. Still, Bitcoin is the largest computer network out there, larger than all the AWS data centers, etc. Of course, those are not very usable for AI compute, but it just shows that it is possible to incentivize users. And that's for me kind of one of the big selling points why decentralized AI makes sense, because it's been proven historically, like, hey, it is possible to aggregate this much compute. Now we just need to focus it on something like decentralized training for new models.
Yeah. And Sanjay, I want to go back to the conversation for a moment when you were bringing up agentic AI and how it's continuing to evolve beyond automation. Does this affect the blockchain in terms of safety and security as it becomes more autonomous and moves to more, DeFi infrastructure?
Yeah. Jill, the notion about blockchain is decentralization. And it's about an overall element, well, it's trustless, but there's a notion of trust which is inbuilt into the way that blockchain is created. When you think about agentic AI workflows that are going to come up, I mean, think about tomorrow, it's not just going to be about you and me interacting. It can be about your agent, a Jill agent, interacting with a Sanjay agent or somebody else on this panel agent. So in that particular case, you're talking about decentralized applications even further. There's going to be a need for trust and security that is built into that application layer, which is going to become all the more critical. And think about now these agents multiplied in the thousands and millions, as it keeps to any kind of customer interaction, customer service interaction, making critical decisions is going to be driven more and more by these AI agents, where security is going to become even more critical.
Yeah. And I think that's encouraging to hear because, again, my initial point in the beginning was security and transparency was almost an afterthought because the technology was evolving so quick. And it seems as if security by design, governance by design is becoming more of a forethought. And I think that's encouraging for the space as this infrastructure continues to develop, especially as more tokenization and real world assets come on chain. That's going to be the source of liquidity, right? As you think about the capital markets and how they're becoming digitized.
Sure. And Jill, could I just touch upon a different topic? Just want to get back to the infrastructure, the energy equation. Because at Auradine, we actually design cutting-edge semiconductor silicon chips, which power both blockchain and AI. We actually build the full system stack on the full software stack. And we want to bring a point about energy, right? Because we know that Bitcoin mining in particular and any other proof of work type protocol, they consume energy. AI consumes significant amount of energies. But one of the parts that is often overlooked is the potential synergy between the two. So as you look at areas like Bitcoin mining, it provides a tremendous ability to balance supply and demand of electrical grids because you can rapidly increase or decrease the amount of Bitcoin mining that you do. In the case of AI compute, you cannot do that. You need a steady state AI compute. But you have AI data centers that are visited all around the country, which are putting up, let's say, a 1 gigawatt plant. They don't consume the 1 gigawatt completely. And the ability to use a mining operation for, let's say, Bitcoin mining to balance that demand of electricity can become very relevant. So a lot of people are looking at these joint data centers where you have both AI compute and Bitcoin compute on the infrastructure layer, which are competing. You have specialized cooling technologies, which are used in blockchain compute, which can be leveraged AI compute as well to drive more energy efficiency and therefore provide a more sustainable AI infrastructure for the future.
Yeah, that's a great point that you bring up, and I think that we should, shift that conversation when it comes to sustainability. But I'm going to talk about the global AI blockchain race for a moment here, Juan, between the U.S. and China, in terms of where investments could be made as we're in this race for innovation, and certainly a competitive landscape. How are you thinking about that from an investment perspective?
It's an interesting question for sure, and zooming out, I don't think anyone can say with confidence that there's competitive edge at the model layer. It's clear that all the labs are investing heavy resources, and some of the smartest people in the world are all sort of working to build some of the best models everywhere in the world. And I think we're starting to see that from multiple fronts. When we think about where to compete and where to invest, we think much more closely to the application layer. So we think that's where the largest arbitrage exists from some of the sort of SaaS businesses and services businesses that exist today, and where AI could come and essentially build a protocol where it can be essentially services as software and start to productize that, and basically can do the work of an entire country through different verticals that sell different services. So we've made an investment in a company called FitChat that's doing this for investment research, and we're excited to sort of zoom out and think about other applications that can greatly benefit from the advances in LLMs today and start to productize that and sell that to customers today. I think you've seen the story from Stripe and from Y Combinator that we're now at one of the most interesting times to build a startup and scale it, because you're seeing companies with 5 to 10 employees get to tens or even hundreds of millions of ARR at an unprecedented pace. So I think that's specifically where we're most excited to invest, is at the application layer, because they can always expand vertically, whereas the models and the infrastructure layer itself is just a lot more capital intensive, and it's getting commoditized much more rapidly, we think.
Yeah, which also makes the M&A space interesting around what's happening in digital asset infrastructure as well. And I think that's another theme that will certainly see a lot of focus, even digital asset companies that are looking for traditional IPO routes, right, to get more liquidity and acquire more capital. You're starting to hear that as well. But I still think at the end of the day, Juan, when we think about it from the capital markets perspective and the technology perspective, it's still early innings. And even though the technology is evolving so quickly, our conversation could look very different 6 months, 2 years out from now. Totally.
And that's why we're a seed stage focused fund, right? I think we're at the point where we're simply looking for some of the best founders and teams that are going to come and navigate this environment, because it's very much rapidly changing, and it's less clear once you're looking to make investments at a growth stage where, again, value could shift quite rapidly.
Yeah. And Marko, I want to hear the same from you as well, where we could be in the near term, where you think we are in terms of the evolution of the AI and blockchain environment, and what this could look like longer term. It might even be a very immature question to ask, because this conversation, again, could look very different in just months from now.
We are very early. And as Juan said, I think the application layer is the most interesting one, because currently everyone is just kind of trying to build things, check out new features. But since it's evolving so quickly, you kind of have to reiterate quickly. And you have very few teams that are actually building companies. Everyone is now building products and shipping them and just kind of thinking about the fun side of things. But what's still missing, and this has been a crypto problem for a while, is projects actually thinking in a like 3 to 5 year horizon to build something sustainable out of it? But obviously, that's the difficult part, and few people want to build companies. It's way more fun to solve complex problems.
Yeah. And when you think about projects that could come on chain, what areas, what sectors do you think holds the most promise, or where would you like to see more work being done as it relates to projects coming on chain?
The decentralized training space is incredibly exciting, but this is not the application layer, and that's super complex. And I'm happy to kind of leave it to teams like Prime Intellect and Jensen, who are building new decentralized training methods to allow these foundational models to be built on a decentralized compute network. What is exciting to me is all of those that kind of improve on the privacy level. Private chatbots, for example. I try to remind people daily, if there is ever an OpenAI hack and there is a leak of your email with all of your prompts that you ever did with an OpenAI model, horrible. I mean, honestly, I would be wasted because I use it for everything daily, like personal things, health problems, everything. So just solving this, I would give up a bit of the quality of the model just to have private conversations with LLMs.
Yeah, that's a great point that you made, because I was talking to Copilot this weekend about my allergies. Isn't it too early to start up, and it's only March? So I leverage it in the same way that you do. I virtually don't even use search anymore. So Sanjay, to wrap this up here, as we're nearly out of time, where do you see projects having the most promise, or how would you solve for those security issues? What do you think the next evolution of this, where should the focus be?
Yeah, so clearly there's security, and I'll let you take a slightly different cut at that, because I know Juan and Marko talked about the application layer. There's work that needs to be done in the infrastructure layer for not just security.
Okay, all right, let's wrap that up there. It seems as if we have lost Sanjay there, but appreciate everyone's insight. It was great to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at
Drive the future of both of them beyond what is being done at the application layer.